From the City of Angels near the Pacific Ocean, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm George Noory. This is Coast to Coast AM. Later on, those open lines followed by past life regression. Here's what's happening. Google's parent company Alphabet is cutting 12,000 jobs as it faces a different economic reality, it said in a staff memo. The latest among tech giants to downsize after a pandemic-led hiring spree left them flabby in a weak economy. Over the last few days, Microsoft said they would lay off 10,000 people. My, oh, my, oh, my. Sales of previously owned homes dropped 1.5% in December from the previous month, according to the National Association of Realtors. Sales ended the year at a seasonally adjusted annualized pace of 4 million units, which was about 34% lower than December of 2021. That's huge. Ukraine is bracing for a major new offensive that could begin within weeks. One of President Zelensky's key insiders says that Russia is among the looming moves to encircle the country with a simultaneous attack on 3 fronts. Charles R. Smith has been watching this for us. Charles, is this it? What do you think?
We've actually seen some additional movement of, for example, Soviet or Russian naval forces down from their base at Novorossiysk. That includes a landing craft ship, very large, and submarines, the Kilo class. That seems quite likely to support some theory that perhaps some amphibious assaults could be taking place either from Crimea, at Kherson, or Odessa.
Mm-hmm.
We've also seen, obviously, the Wagner Group guys making inroads in the Donetsk region and the Far East. And, of course, we've also seen additional motion of the very large number of Russian troops in Belarus just across the border from Chernobyl. The only problem is timing. Putin taking this kind of step in early February, he did that last year and found out very quickly that his mobile and armored forces will get bogged down in the mud. So, if anything, this could perhaps be more of an infantry move than vast amounts of armor, which is what we witnessed last year. The Russians are also suffering in supplies right now. For example, they were using kitchen anti-ship missiles for attacks against Ukrainian cities. It looks like they're really suffering a desperate shortage of missiles, artillery. Even many of their aircraft have been grounded because spares and maintenance due to the sanctions have shut them basically down. So, all in all, yeah, there could be an offensive coming, but how rapid and how effective, that's questionable.
All depends on how much armory we get to the Ukrainians, I bet, huh?
Well, sending them tanks is more of a symbolic thing than really viable battlefield. I believe what's happened is that several large shipments of artillery shells, 155 millimeter artillery shells, have been made into Ukraine via several supporting resources and stockpiles. For example, there was a report from Israel as well as from South Korea that the U.S. had moved large numbers of artillery shells from the inventories there and shipped them to Ukraine. That could actually deter any successes, either both for infantry or for armor.
All right, Charles, thank you so much. Charles R. Smith. In a moment, mentalist and psychic Uri Geller joins us, and he's got some tough words for Vladimir Putin. Apollo 11 astronaut Edwin Buzz Aldrin Jr., who reimagined the potential of human achievement before a worldwide audience when he walked on the moon in July of 1969, was born on this day, January 20th, 1930. Happy birthday, Buzz. The Apollo 11 mission was the first in human history to land men on Earth's satellite, fulfilling a dream as old as humanity by itself. Europe is about to undertake one of its grandest ever space missions to explore the icy moons of Jupiter. The JUICE satellite, as it's called, is going through final testing in France, after which it will be shipped to the launch site in South America. It's due to depart planet Earth in April. Let's keep our fingers crossed on that. And here's Kevin Randall with his weekly UFO report. Hello, Kevin. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, George. How are you?
Okay.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I reported that Sean Kirkpatrick of Arrow had said they were going to investigate UFO sightings going back to 1997. Not long after that, Chris Mellon said that the investigation was going to begin with sightings in 1945. I believe the difference is that Kirkpatrick was talking about the official DOD and DNI investigation, and Mellon was referring to the NASA end of the probe. Not exactly contradictory statements, just a difference in investigative philosophy of two separate but parallel investigations. As I have said, there are many good reports being made today. On September 4th of last year, the witness in Montero, California, said that he saw a large cylinder-shaped object at the top of a mountain. He said it was close to a man-made structure, and he thought it was some kind of parking garage because there was a corkscrew pattern on the side. It was tall, smooth, and had a black stripe on it. At the top were several smooth silver cylinders, and to the right was a structure that hung over the edge of the mountain. The primary witness didn't get a good look at the structure, but the secondary witnesses did. The object was in sight for 1 to 2 minutes, and as they rounded the mountain and looked back, the object, whatever it was, had disappeared. There was a corresponding spike in the magnetometer at one of the Madar node sites, providing a secondary chain of evidence. A much better sighting occurred on August 11th of last year near Willimantic, Connecticut. According to the witness, two objects were seen flying side by side. They were triangular-shaped and had a series of lights on them. The UFO passed directly overhead, flying low with no noise. The objects moved straight up and disappeared. According to Fran Ridge, there were 3 important points. A specific time was given. The witness said, and I quote, "They then moved straight up quickly," end quote, indicating vertical ascent. And finally, in Newington, Connecticut, which is only 27 miles west of the sighting area, the Madar node 106 had a noticeable increase in the magnetometer reading, and the onboard compass had a varied reading for 3 minutes, and the sighting lasted 3 minutes. And from Sydney, Australia, comes a video taken by a woman identified only as Tanya on January 18th of this year. She was sitting on the balcony when the UFO caught her attention. She thought it might be a meteor, but then realized it had stopped to hover. And she said that it then shot off at high speed. The UFO is bright, white object against a blue sky. The motion seems to be the result of the object's motion, though the camera does move. There doesn't seem to be a break in the filming based on the time codes of the video. A UFO investigator in Australia who watched the video said that it moved too fast to be a drone, though he couldn't rule that out completely. He said that it didn't move like any other aerial craft, such as a balloon. He did say it would help if there were other witnesses. Now I'll post a link to the video on my blog, and that's what we have for tonight, George.
All right, my friend, we'll talk to you next week. As I mentioned, psychic and mentalist Uri Geller has stepped in to pull the world back from the brink of a World War III, possibly, with a truly mind-bending warning to Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a moment, we go live to Israel to talk with Uri Geller about that, and also extraterrestrials, next on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Noory with you. Uri Geller is the world's most investigated and celebrated mystifier. He is famous around the planet for his mind-bending psychic powers and has led a very unique life shrouded in debate, controversy, mystery. Uri has been studied by scientists who worked with Albert Einstein, worked with the FBI and CIA. He's an accomplished author as well. And here he is, one of our favorite guests, back on Coast to Coast, Uri Geller. Hello, Mr. Geller. Welcome back.
Hey, George. Hi. Thank you very much for inviting me onto your show. Geographically, I would like to tell you all where I am. I'm in a city in southern Israel called Eilat, and that is right on the Red Sea. The Red Sea, which is actually, it's red because of the red reed that kind of floats on its waters. Now, going back to biblical times, you all remember the crossing of the Red Sea by Moses.
That's right.
The the crossing of the Red Sea forms an important episode in the biblical narrative of the Exodus. It basically tells of the escape of the Israelites led by Moses from the pursuing Egyptians. This is actually incredible because there are some people believe that UFOs were involved in the parting of the Red Sea. And this is all recounted in the book of Exodus. And Moses, as you remember Charles Heston in the famous movie, he holds out the staff and God parts the waters of the Yam Suf. Yam Suf in Hebrew is the Red Sea, the reed, the red reed. It's quite fascinating. So I'm looking out of my hotel window and I'm looking at the Red Sea, and I'm sending you all over the world who are listening to your program, George, immense positive energy from the Red Sea.
Didn't they find a chariot there, Uri, years ago, a chariot in the water that could have been an Egyptian chariot?
They claim that they found lots of very unusual archaeological finds. I totally believe in the story. I believe that the Bible is riddled with truth, and once again, it's very hard to decipher whether aliens helped the Israelites escape from Egypt. Today, I say yes, no doubt, because you see, throughout my career, George, I've seen things that basically blew my mind. I know that aliens exist. I've seen them with my very own eyes, and it goes back almost 55 years ago when when Mossad, I was working for Mossad at that time. Mossad, because there was no internet then, there were no iPhones, Mossad did not have the tools to test my powers. They knew I was bringing them good information like a remote viewer does, but they didn't know how, and they wanted to know how. So they asked the CIA to investigate me, and the CIA asked Captain Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut that was the sixth man to walk on the moon with Apollo 14 mission. They asked him to convince me to leave Israel. So, wow, I get a letter from Mitchell, a signed photograph. I'm freaking out. I can't believe that an astronaut is contacting me and trying to tell me, look, Uri, we need to test you. I didn't need convincing, George. I jumped on a plane and flew to Palo Alto, California, where some physicists were waiting for me, Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff, and straight to Stanford Research Institute, where they tested me, and this was all financed by the CIA.
I remember that great story you told us once, Uri, about you and Edgar Mitchell. He had a NASA tie clasp that he had lost, and you were having some ice cream with him at lunch, and it was in your ice cream and in your mouth. Somehow it got there, and you found it. Remember that one?
When you say somehow, what I deduce from that episode is that it simply materialized. Materializations today are proved by science, by quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement. There's no doubt that things can appear and disappear from point A to point B, but we're talking about the early 70s when this occurred. Ed, I'll never forget his face. He looked at the tiepin, at the tie clasp, and his face ashened. He couldn't believe what he was looking at because he lost that tiepin years and years ago on a beach in Florida. Wow. And it appears in my ice cream.
That's incredible.
Then there are lots of other stories involved when the CIA tested me, and they came out with an incredible endorsement. What they said and that you can actually find it on the CIA's website. They said, as a result of Geller's success in this experimental period, we consider that he has demonstrated his paranormal perceptual ability in a convincing and unambiguous manner. CIA. I was only 27, and to get this type of an endorsement from one of the largest espionage community in the world was just, wow, mind-blowing. Then I was taken to the Lawrence Livermore radiation labs. And to those who do not know, they build nuclear bombs there.
Yep.
And they basically wanted to test my abilities to see if my mind can trigger a nuclear weapon. And that's when, inside those laboratories, freaky things started happening. And I can only connect them to an alien observation. This goes so deep into the fact that there are UFOs and alien forces are watching us. They are monitoring us. They basically do not want our planet to be destroyed by nuclear bombs. That's what's going on here.
And you have a very stern warning for Vladimir Putin, Uri. Tell us what you did.
Well, I'm being asked constantly by different sources, which I cannot name, to help them in the fight, in trying to keep Putin away from nuclear bombs, from pressing the red button. And I came up with this warning letter, an open letter, where I said your nukes, your nuclear weapons, are no match for my mind power. And I basically warned Vladimir Putin that if he will use nuclear bombs, I will use every last molecule in my mind power, to prevent any Russian nuclear attack. Now, I know this sounds very far out and almost taken out of a science fiction movie, but I was in this letter urging the Russian president to ditch any plans to launch a nuclear strike. Then at that time, there were theories that he's going to launch a nuclear strike on naval bases in Scotland, close to my Lamb Island. I own. We will talk about, if you will allow me, my mysterious Lamb Island in Scotland. And this was an open letter, and I'm issuing this statement. That's what I said, as a serious warning to you. I addressed him directly, and I said, if you resort to the use of nuclear weapons, your plans and your missiles will backfire on you.
You were going to divert the missiles, weren't you, with your mind power?
Yes. I said I will use every last molecule of my mind power to prevent you from launching a nuclear attack. Of course, I asked for help. I needed support. This is a mammoth task of preventing a nuclear holocaust, and I'm calling on. These were my words. I'm calling on all the wonderful, peace-loving people of the world to join me. I'm on Twitter. My Twitter is Uri Geller. My Instagram is Uri Geller. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. So I have quite a few following. One of my last posting had 4 million views.
Wow.
So I was asking through my social media, please stop what you're doing right now and just take 5 seconds out of the day to visualize. This is me asking my followers to visualize a radiant, energetic force field, almost like a dazzling golden shield in the sky that will deflect and turn back any nuclear warheads that Putin attempts to display.
Uri, we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We're at the bottom of the hour. We'll come right back and pick it up right there. Our special guest tonight is Uri Geller. We'll take calls with Uri next hour here on Coast to Coast. Much more to talk with him about when we come back in a moment. And welcome back to Coast. George Noory with Uri Geller. Uri, did you get any response? Uri, you there? Uh-oh. Tommy, you better call him back. We have lost Uri Geller. And we will try to figure out where he is and get him back. He's in Israel, folks. He's a long way away. All right, still there. Uri, you there? No, he's not there. Sorry, folks. We're going through that. And if we lose Uri, guess what? We start open lines a little earlier here on Coast to Coast. So as a matter of fact, just to be on the safe side, let's start open lines right now, just in case we can't get Uri back. And those of you who remember the number, go ahead and start making the calls, and we'll set you up, and we'll do some open lines. But he has sent a letter to Vladimir Putin, warning Putin that if he uses nukes in this Ukrainian situation, where Vladimir Putin's people have threatened that they're going to use nukes also throughout the campaign against other countries, that he is going to use his mental mind power to turn things around. And it's just truly a remarkable thing. But let's go to open lines. Let's open them up, and we'll see this. Tommy, let me get you for a second. Are you there? We'll put you back on for a second.
I am here.
What do you think happened to him?
I don't know. I just called him back, and I heard him. He said hello, but then I said, Uri, you ready? And then he didn't hear me, so it's got to be because of the distance.
Something's going on. And he's on. I'll let you take over.
That's trying to get a hold of him again.
Shut your mic off. But we'll go to open lines if we have to. If not, I'll sing for the next 10, 15 minutes until we get to open lines again. But Geller's been a pretty good guest. Back in 1973, he was on The Tonight Show, and he was being pushed and threatened by the amazing Randy, and Johnny Carson looked miffed, and Uri was unable to perform what he normally did, and it just didn't work. But let's take some open line calls. First time caller, you're on the air with me. Welcome to the show. Hello. Well, we might have phone issues here, folks, Danny. Let's try one more. Let's go west of the Rockies. Hello there. You there?
Yes.
What's your name?
Larry.
Where are you calling from, Larry? You're on the air.
Tacoma, Washington.
Great spot. What's on your mind?
We have tried powers of intention from coast to coast before.
Yes, we have.
And worked rather well, I thought, from what I heard. And could we not assist Uri Geller with a power of intention thought from everyone across the United States?
That's not a bad idea. Sometimes we've done it under controlled circumstances. Sometimes we have not. But something's got to be done, because I'm concerned that something's going to break through and it's going to be a disaster. So we've got to be careful. Thanks for the call. Next up, we've got Bill in Michigan. Welcome to the show. Hey, Bill.
Hey, this is Bill calling from Munger, Michigan.
Yes, sir.
I had a quick one for you. Hey, back in, I think it was around 2004, we had that big blackout from, I think, Michigan all the way to New York.
Yep.
About a year before that, Al Bielek was on the radio, and he said right about that time there was going to be a major disruption, and he was predicting like a year ahead, and we had that blackout, I think, almost on that exact same date. So I don't know if anybody ever caught on to that or not, and I haven't heard anything about it on your show. So
Bielek was one of a kind. He's not with us anymore, as you know.
Yeah, rest in peace.
He passed on. What did you think of that Philadelphia experiment that he was part of?
I thought it was very interesting. To me, for a little bit there, I thought he was kind of like pulling my leg, but once that blackout hit, it kind of all went home, kind of like it was real. So,
he was one of, and he had his brother Duncan Cameron, who was also part of that experiment. Next up, we got Tom in Riverside, California, west of the Rockies. Hey, Tom.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
You're up. Turn on your radio and come on back.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You got me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. I want the song "My Way" if you sing. Okay. And then the other thing is I'm kind of on the Russia thing. I just have to say I'm on Russia's side. You know, we took down Russia. Reagan took him down. I'm a fan of Reagan, but still, you know, they took down Russia. Russia was a proud country. And then you're talking about going against Russia. You know, Russia liberated a lot of the Jews in those concentration camps in World War II. And they fought hard. And they moved all their equipment to Siberia over a lake, a frozen lake, laying train tracks across that lake to fight the Germans. They knew they were coming, and they got ready for them. So I got a lot of respect for the Russians, and I got a lot of respect for Putin. And if he's a bad guy, hey, just go and look at the news reels from Vietnam when that girl's running naked from napalm. What we did to Vietnam.
Well, Vietnam was a disaster, Tom.
We're not the good guys all the time.
No, nobody is in a war, that's for sure. And Vietnam was a disaster beyond anything you can imagine. East of the Rockies, welcome to the program. Let's go to Dan in San Antonio, Texas. Hey, Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, George. I really appreciate it. God bless you all. Listen, I want to ask you, I'm sorry, I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and I don't know if you're having problems with the communication, but I don't know what happened to Uri. Have you ever asked him if is he in a compromising position because of these things about Putin and stuff?
That was going to be one of my next questions, and he's disappeared. I hope he's okay.
Well, that's what I mean, because, in other words, I think about you and Trump and everybody, like, do y'all have enough security? Like, is that the question right there? Because a lot of people, they're coming after us right now.
He's in a hotel somewhere in Israel, but I don't know what his security situation is or anything like that. But you send a letter like that to Putin, who knows what's going to happen? Yeah, because, see, remember Trump, at one point in time, he pointed out that he could take out somebody from a distance and that they wouldn't even know what happened to him, you know? Yep.
And supposedly something happened to those people who were mercenaries in other parts of the world, and he took them out, and they didn't never know what happened to them, you know? So if that can happen like that, well, Yuri's in danger, right? You know?
Well, let's hope not. We'll keep trying to get him just to see what's going on with him, but it was a very strange thing. This happens a lot when you have some controversial guest on. Time and time again. It really has. And you folks all heard it. We tried. Let's go next to Steve in Albany, New York. Hey, Stephen, welcome.
Hey, how you doing, George? It's Steve, the taxi driver.
Yes, sir. How have you been?
Couldn't be better. Things are going really well for me. Just bought a Batmobile, 2010 black Cadillac CTS4. And couldn't be happier. I wanted to tell you that I was delivering Chinese food again, and I was driving across the State University of New York campus to make a delivery. I was stopped by the police, and the cop walks up to me, and he goes, "Hi, Steve, how you doing?" I'm sitting there, and I didn't recognize him immediately. I was too shocked that he called me by my name. I hadn't been up there in a while. And he just said, "Hell no, you've been up here all the time. We all know who you are." And he says, "Steve, you got to stop calling in Coast to Coast AM." And I was told by the police not to call Coast. And I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because you're taking too much time, and we've got to hear the weirdos. And I looked at him and with a very straight face and said, I am one of those weirdos.
I love it.
He cracked up. Now, I wanted to talk to Uri because I was on Facebook.
I'm going to put you on hold because we may have him back. Let's go check in. Uri, you back with us?
Yes, I'm back with you. I wouldn't be surprised if this is alien intervention here
or something. We thought the Putin boys got you.
Yeah, I don't know if this happens to you often. It doesn't happen to me. So I just want to finish this warning letter, an open letter that I wrote Putin and to all my followers on my social media. I continued in my warning to him, telling Putin that as well as harnessing this immense energy of all our combined mind power, there are also, and this is important, there are also forces far, far greater than you can imagine that I'm sure will intervene to prevent you from starting a nuclear war. And I continue telling Putin that they are watching and waiting, and they will stop. I actually wrote capitalized, stop you. So I told Putin to not contemplate this fair course of action. Please take heed. If you proceed with this, it is Russia and its people who will suffer the most. And I went on saying that your mission control computers will crash, your navigation systems will fail, and your missiles will malfunction. And I totally believe in that. And I warned him. I told him, you have been warned. And, open letter, and no doubt Putin, I know it from inside information, Putin had my warning letter on his table in the Kremlin.
I was going to say, did you get any feedback from him or any of his cronies?
Yes, not directly from him, but certain people who, are in the echelons of oligarchs, who live in Israel and so forth. I know that he read my warning letter to him. You know that in Israel is a very powerful, first of all, there's no doubt we are talking about the Holy Land where Jesus Christ walked, where Muhammad the Prophet came down from the heavens. This is an incredible power point on earth. And I'm not surprised that people, and let me remind you who Chaim Eshed is. Did you speak in the past about the author, about the space security chief in Israel called Chaim Eshed?
Yes.
And you have. What was your last kind of verdict about Chaim Eshed?
He seemed, now he's never been on the show, but we talked about the stories that were breaking from him, and he seemed very credible. Did you get that same feeling?
Of course. I mean, let's face it, he was the chief security boss of all our space program. I mean, it's just unbelievable because he was a former Israeli space chief. And he said that aliens exist and Donald Trump knows about it. I'm sure that also Obama knows about it. And he claimed that a galactic federation has been waiting for humans to reach a stage where we will understand. So, wow. And this comes from Israel. Unbelievable.
Truly. And I want to talk with you about Wernher von Braun. What did he tell you? Our great rocket who we got from the Germans.
Yeah, the Wernher von Braun story, again, is mind-blowing. I mean, we're discussing here people who, let me just explain all our listeners who Dr. Wernher von Braun was. But I have to backtrack a little because when I went...
and we've got a break coming up, Uri, in about a minute and a half. Go ahead.
Okay. During the minute and a half, let's prepare everyone for Wernher von Braun. I was, again, asked by Captain Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut who was 6 months on the moon, to come and meet him, and he would take me to the CIA tests at Palo Alto at Stanford Research Institute. After all the tests and the endorsements I got from the CIA, Ed Mitchell approaches me and he says to me, Uri, there is someone very important in NASA that wants to meet you. I said, fine, who is it? He says, it's Dr. Wernher von Braun. I said, what? Dr. Wernher von Braun was a Nazi. I mean, I have photographs of Dr. Wernher von Braun surrounded with Gestapo officers. So we will pick up after the commercial break, and I will tell you what exactly he told me and what exactly he showed me, because that's when I fainted. I've seen... We will speak when we come back, okay?
You got a deal. Stay right there, Uri. We'll come back and get you in a moment. Plus, we'll open up the phone lines for people who want an opportunity to talk with you in just a moment on Coast to Coast. Wernher von Braun, working with thousands of other great dedicated workers, helped get us to the moon. He had the idea of rocketry, and he knew how to do it. He also talked with Uri Geller, showed Uri Geller around. But what did he show him about ETs? Uri's back with us in a moment on Coast to Coast AM, and we'll also take your calls this hour. And welcome back to Coast. George Noory with you, along with psychic and mentalist Uri Geller. Uri, back to Wernher von Braun. He must have shown you some serious things about ETs, huh?
Yes, absolutely. But before we go into that, if you will allow me, George, I would like to mention my website, which is urigeller.com.
And we have that linked up, by the way. We have that linked up at our website.
Yeah, great. And after Wernher von Braun, we'll speak about my mysterious Lamb Island, which I bought 13 years ago in Scotland, because there are ties to UFOs on my island.
Sure.
And all of our listeners can become citizens of my island, and we'll talk about it. It's all in the name of charity. Money goes to sick children, to a charity called Save a Child's Heart. We already saved over 6,500 kids with open-heart surgery. Believe it or not, half of them are Palestinians. Okay, let's go back to Wernher von Braun. So Mitchell asks me to meet this important scientist called Wernher von Braun, who basically put the Americans on the moon. And I say to him, you know, he's a Nazi. I'm Israeli. I'm Jewish. Half of my family were murdered by Nazis. But I could not contain my curiosity. And I said to him, okay, let's go and meet Wernher von Braun. I had then a small Minox German spy camera, which I got from the CIA because I did some work for the CIA in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So I give that camera to my brother-in-law, Shippy, and I tell him, Shippy, listen, the minute we enter Wernher von Braun's office, you got to snap a photo because nobody will believe me. So we get to the secret NASA base, straight to Wernher von Braun's office. Shippy takes a photo. These photographs are on my website, on urigeller.com. And Wernher von Braun, the first thing he wants me to bend his wedding ring with the power of my mind, and without touching it. So I do that. I bend his ring. And then he says to me, okay, Uri, now come with me. And he takes me into his personal office. Now listen, in the office stands a safe. He bends down. Wernher von Braun opens the safe, and inside I see a piece of metal, maybe 12 and a half, maximum 13 inches in length. I've never seen such a color. It was pearly. It looked like it's breathing. He pulls a piece of metal out of his safe, and it's not heavy because he's just pulling it out and holding it in his hand. And he says to me, Uri, put your hand on this piece of metal. Tell me what you feel. I place my hand on the piece of metal, and I immediately tell him, Wernher, this is not from here. And he immediately answers me, you're right. This is a piece of a UFO that crashed on our planet. What?
Wow.
I freak out because, you know, George, when I was 6, 7, 8-year-old, here in Tel Aviv, I used to sneak into movies about aliens and UFOs. I always believed in them, but hearing it from the mouth of Wernher von Braun, NASA scientist, doctor. But wait, hold on, this is not the end.
And then he says to me, okay, come follow me. And he takes me out to the car park. I hit Shippy, my brother-in-law, with my elbow, take a picture. So Shippy snaps a picture of me and Wernher von Braun standing next to his limo with a driver, and he says to me, sit next to me. I sit in next to Wernher von Braun. He gives an order to his driver to drive deep into the center of the NASA base. We arrive to a concrete building. There's no name, nothing on it. To the best of my recollection, there was a soldier standing in the door. Wernher von Braun leads me 3 flights down. We descend into the belly of this concrete building. And then in the corridor, there were hanging on hooks Antarctica coats. You know, those warm coats that you wear when you go on an expedition to Antarctica?
Those parkas, yeah.
Parka, he says, put one on. And he puts one on. And then, George, he leads me around the corner to a huge metal door. Above the door, clearly written out, refrigerators. He opens the door.
Here we go.
And I faint. And this is where the red line comes in, because there are certain areas that I cannot talk about. But I think all of our listeners know what I've seen with my own eyes inside those refrigerator rooms. There was a vast, huge refrigerator room. So, I mean, I've seen it with my own eyes. So, unless I was hypnotized or I was drugged, I wasn't hypnotized and I wasn't drugged. I've seen what. Now, Ed Mitchell, on a few occasions, told me that these aliens exist and we've got the body.
Yeah, he told me that too, Uri. He was a staunch believer in it.
Yes, and also just to validate this story more, June Crane, who worked with Wernher von Braun, she held that piece of metal, and also Carol Sue Rosin, who was Wernher von Braun's spokeswoman. Unbelievable. So now that the Pentagon is releasing footage from their pilots, and you can hear the pilots scream in the cockpit, oh my God, what is that? And you see these objects flying in speeds that we do not have that sophistication, we do not have that technology that to move the velocity of these flying objects. These UFOs are so fast, we don't have that technology. And you can hear the pilots scream in the cockpit. It's been caught on radar, like you say in your commercials. This is not a myth anymore. This is solid evidence. UFOs are visiting us. And I've known about this over 55 years ago when I met Dr. Puharich, who came to test me in Israel, who was a good friend of Andrea Puharich. I would like to speak about my Lamb Island, but do you have any other questions in this arena?
When I first met you back in 1996 in St. Louis, remember you were at the Jewish Community Center?
Yes.
You seemed reluctant at that time to talk about UFOs and extraterrestrials. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. I hid the fact. When that book came out in 1973-74, called Uri, by Andrea Puharich, who was a scientist, is a doctor. Mm-hmm. He invented the mask, the oxygen mask for fighter pilots. When he wrote that book, and by the way, let me tell you something that no one knows. It was Jacqueline Kennedy who pushed the book through. I met Jacqueline on a few occasions in her New York apartment on Central Park, and she knew the head of Doubleday. She knew the heads of some big publishing companies in New York, and she believed in Andrea's story. And Andrea's story in the book Uri, which is actually available to read free of charge on my website, you just scroll down to books. There are also documentaries about called The Secret Life of Uri Geller by the BBC. As she pushed the book through, the book was published, and Andrea, I'm controversial. I've been controversial all my life. But for Andrea to come out writing a book that we have seen UFOs, and we're talking about 1969, 1917, the Sinai Desert was outrageous for a scientist to declare that. He was booed in seminars. I mean, this was immensely controversial. So, hey, my thing with UFOs and aliens go back, since I was 5 years old when I had an encounter in an Arabic garden here in Tel Aviv.
There were rumors that the UFOs gave you the power that you had for bending spoons and things like that.
I wouldn't call it rumors. I was hounded by skeptics throughout the years. I never forget my Johnny Carson show.
Oh, 1973, wasn't it?
The what? I didn't hear that.
1973, Johnny Carson.
Yeah,
right?
I was. Yes, 30 million people watching, and I was humiliated by Johnny Carson. Things didn't work out. It was a setup. It was a trap. I thought, and Johnny's, when I bent a spoon in the hands of Ricardo Montalban, the actor, that wasn't enough for Johnny Carson. He was kind of smoking under the table. And I thought, that is, my career is destroyed. Uri Geller, go back to your hotel in Los Angeles, pack up and fly back to Israel. You're finished. I mean, failing on Johnny Carson or not succeeding was embarrassing and humiliating. Now, listen, I went back to the hotel. I was devastated. I fell on the bed, and I fell asleep. The next morning, the phone rings, and the operator tells me, Mr. Geller, I have a Merv Griffin on the line for you.
They wanted you on.
Yeah, I said, I want you on my show. I saw you on Johnny Carson. That's when I realized that all controversy is good for me. Skeptics actually created my career. They created the debate, the mystery, and the enigma. But going back to aliens and UFOs, they're visiting us. They're trying to protect our planet. And in a nutshell, maybe they're even walking among us.
Tell me about this island, then we'll take calls for the rest of the hour.
Okay, my island is amazing. I have, I was in Japan and I read the Times, and I read that there was an island for sale in Scotland, right next to Edinburgh, in a place called North Berwick. Mm-hmm. It was very inexpensive. And, I had this James Bond in mind to own an island. So I bought the island, and then I get a phone call from no other than Mohammed Al-Fayed. Mohammed Al-Fayed, just to put you in the picture, guys, he was a billionaire. He's an Egyptian billionaire. He's 93 now. And his tragedy was that his son Dodi died with Princess Diana in Paris.
He owned he owned a big store, didn't he?
Yeah, he owned Harrods in London.
Yep.
And he tells me, Uri, I heard that you bought Lamb Island. I have to tell you something. I'm going to send you a book that was written 500 years ago called the Scotichronicon. It was written by a Scottish abbot called Walter of Inchcombe. And in that book, unbelievable, but the story is that 3,500 years ago, Queen Scotta, who was one of the daughters of one of the pharaohs, she sailed to northern Europe, moored outside my island, and buried she instructed the soldiers to bury Egyptian treasure. Now, beside that, when Robert Louis Stevenson, if you all remember, who wrote the literally classic Treasure Island, he lived opposite my island in North Berwick. My island, in another island called Sidra, one of the string of three rocky outcrops in the Firth of Forth of Scotland, that inspired, believe it or not, Robert Louis Stevenson to write Treasure Island. And then there were all kinds of reports that there are UFOs over my island. Now, 4 months ago, I turned my island into a country, into a micronation. I have a constitution, I have a flag, I have an anthem. Believe it or not, I have a football team. All of you can become citizens of my Lamb Island. Simply get on my website, UriGeller.com. It'll cost you $1 to become a citizen. The $1 goes to a charity that I mentioned before, Save a Child's Heart. And we saved over 6,500 children with open heart surgery. That's where the money goes. And you become a citizen of Lamb Island. So that's the story of my amazing Lamb Island in Scotland.
Did you have a little house there or anything?
No, you cannot live on the island because it is a bird sanctuary. When I bought Lamb Island, I became the automatic owner of 150,000 seagulls and 50,000 puffins. They actually nest on Lamb Island. Now, it's a UFO hotspot, no doubt. There are people who live on North Berwick, right opposite my island, that tell me, Uri Geller, we see often UFOs hovering over Lamb Island. And recently on my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, which is called the Uri Geller, that's my Twitter, I posted a photograph of a British destroyer who was patrolling around my Lamb Island because there were reports that a UFO splashed into the water right next to my Lamb Island. Now, you just Google it. These are not stories that I'm inventing. Go to Twitter and you'll find that picture. So, yes, there are probably, and I assume that this is true, that aliens also have underwater bases. You know how many bona fide videos there are of these objects flying in tremendous speed, splashing into the sea, and disappearing. Come on, what on earth is that? No doubt again, aliens exist, they visit us, probably they walk among us, and they're protecting our beautiful planet.
Let's take some calls. We'll take a break and come back and wrap up with final call. Steve in Albany, New York, our cab driver. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, Uri. Hey, Baruch Hashem first.
Thank you, Stephen.
I'm one of your Facebook friends, and I sent you a picture of a fork I bent with my fingers. I wanted to clarify something. I have been doing this for a while. Started out with a key when I was getting off my motorcycle. I pulled it out, and I feel this little feeling that comes on me. And then I looked, and the key was bent. And then I started bending spoons, and it really became really noticeable when I had a spoon that was not made of like steel or anything else that was able to be bent. It was made out of pot metal, and it just broke. And at that time, I realized that this thing was getting out of hand. What can I do with this ability?
What's your question?
What can I do with this ability besides?
Okay, let me explain. I think we all remember the famous Arthur C. Clarke movie 2001: Space Odyssey.
Classic, yes.
Unbelievable film. That's my favorite film of all time. Believe it or not, Stephen, I bent Arthur C. Clarke's key, his house key, and Arthur C. Clarke was arrested breaking into his own house. He was climbing up onto the window to get into his own house because he couldn't use the bent key. So for decades, Stephen, I thought that I was bending spoons and forks and keys through my television shows in people's homes. I was also fixing broken watches. I really thought that it was my energy that was penetrating through the camera into people's homes, into their living rooms. But I was wrong. How did I discover that I was wrong? Dr. Thelma Moss from UCLA, she filmed a group of students while I was bending spoons and fixing broken watches in the university, UCLA. But I didn't know that it was a secret film. And when I went back to New York, she played that videotape 2 weeks later to a new group of students. And lo and behold, just for my videotape,
spoons and keys were bending.
Hold on, Uri. We're at a break. We'll come back and finish up this call and take others next on Coast to Coast AM. Open lines begin next hour here on Coast to Coast, so get ready for that. And we're going to come back in a moment with Uri Geller and take phone calls as we continue talking about his incredible career. What an amazing person. I remember seeing him on Janet Carson in 1973, and like he said, he was felt like he was destroyed, but it turned his career around. It really did. And welcome back to Coast, George Noory with you. Let's go wrap up with Steve, the Albany cab driver. Steve, this is a gift that you've been able to do for all these years.
Yeah, I first when I first did it, I was visiting a marriage counselor, and I went into his office, and I said, I just bent the key to my motorcycle. And then sometime after that, I started bending spoons. I just kept bending spoons and all sorts of flatware, and I became really frustrated with it.
Well, that's amazing. Let's go back to Uri Geller. Uri, we're wrapping things up with Steve, the cab driver in New York, who's got some spoon-bending abilities, and he doesn't know what to do with it.
May I answer the question now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I learned many years ago that it wasn't my energy that was bending spoons in people's homes. What I was doing, I became a catalyst. I was a trigger. I was an enabler to awaken the minds of people who actually had this dormant energy within them. And as a matter of fact, on my website, on urigeller.com, I actually have the Geller effect. It's a program where I teach people how to develop your own limitless psychic potential using easy-to-follow practices that anyone can master. Now, spoon, are we still on?
Yeah.
So spoon bending is, I mean, I've heard this type of stories like you're telling me now, not hundreds of times, thousands of times. I would suggest that you forget spoon bending, but this shows me that you're intuitive. You have certain psychic abilities. Start using for your own benefit. Believe in yourself. Start visualizing, creating your target goals, and just become, successful through your psychic powers. I am a total believer that the power of the mind can manifest anything. There is nothing that you cannot be, do, or have, because you are the architect of your own life. Anyhow, thanks for the call.
Thank you, Steve. Let's go to Joe in the Bronx in New York. Joe, you're on with Uri Geller. Go ahead.
Hey, George, how are you?
Okay.
Good. Uri, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'd like to ask the following question, Uri. You sent a letter to Putin regarding his threats of using nuclear weapons. Do you expect, or do you hold the expectation of receiving a response from Mr. Putin?
Well, first of all, I know for a fact that he received the letter.
He did get it.
Israel is full with Russians. There are lots of oligarchs here who are connected to the Kremlin, to Putin. Look, Russians are very superstitious. I know this. I own a museum in Old Jaffa, and I'm visited by thousands of Russians who come from all over Israel and from Russia. And they believe, they're very open-minded. They believe in the powers of the mind. So I know that Putin took my open letter. I don't want to call it a threat, but he took it very seriously. And the fact is that he kind of backed down from the declarations of nuclear war, and that he's going to activate a nuclear weapon and silos and so on. He ebbed away from that. I want to believe that it's part of our effort, because I'm not doing this alone. I've asked people to help me, and we are doing it successfully. Now, whether I will get a tangible letter from Putin, I don't know. But, hey, I get information verbally from people who know him.
And yeah, he has absorbed, and my warning to him.
Next up.
Thanks for your question.
Reb in Denver, Colorado. Hey, Reb, thanks for calling.
Yeah, this is U.S. Pentagon First Team Bubba Scout Reb. They know us all over the Pentagon, and our website, vulturesquadron.com, is at Cape Canaveral, Florida. That's who started it in 2000. I got a good question for you.
Okay.
How come you don't use your mind power to stop the chemical spraying that's ruining the planet and the ionospheric heating? Just for example, try to eat a pound of this snow and then tell us what you feel.
Oh, I don't think I want to do that. I don't know. What do you think of chemtrails, Uri?
Look, I'm just one human being. I'm not a miracle worker, and I'm not a prophet, and I'm not, I can't manifest everything at the same time. I do my bit for certain secret agencies, only positive missions. I am dealing with a Putin situation now, and on my list there are other things that I have to help. Look, our planet is not in the best and healthiest situation. Look at as we speak now, ice caps are melting. There is global warming. There are thousands and thousands of nuclear weapons ready to be fired off from submarines, silos, and airplanes. Look at the medical arena. Yes, we have advanced tremendously, but hey, we still are struggling to cure cancer. I mean, if you look at all this in the bigger scope of things, we've got to solve these problems. For instance, what if a meteorite or a comet will start coming in velocities that we can't really comprehend towards planet Earth? I mean, one big comet hitting our Earth, that's it. Forget it.
It's gone. Yep.
So we don't even have weapons yet to encounter, to stop, to explode these dangerous comets or meteorites that might hit Earth. So we are really, in a way, yes, we have advanced tremendously, and we've got internet, and we've got amazing medical discoveries and so on. But in the bigger picture, hey, we're really struggling. Do you realize that every 3 seconds, and listen to this carefully and absorb it, every 3 seconds a baby dies from hunger somewhere around the world? Hey,
jeez,
wake up, Earth. This is why when people ask me, what do we do? How can we help? I, first of all, talk to the individual people. I tell them, look, first of all, if you can go there with your mind, you can go there with your body. Whatever you can visualize, you can materialize. There's nothing that you cannot be, do, or have. When you wake up tomorrow morning, put yourself in an attitude of gratitude. Start thinking positive. Activate your mind power. Again, my website will help you a lot. Just go to urigeller.com. You'll find a lot of free material on my website. And believe in yourself. Be positive. Become a positive thinker. Put yourself in a mental positive attitude, and then things will start changing for you.
Let's go next to Dave in Tacoma, Washington, west of the Rockies. David, go ahead.
Oh, hello, Uri. Will you please discuss the recent predictions of alien invasion?
All right, I will tell you exactly. This is a brilliant question. I have been quoted through lots of newspapers, radios, etc., and even TV stations saying, "Oh, Mr. Geller, Uri Geller has just announced that there will be an alien invasion." Well, that is not true. I never, ever used the word invasion. If there will be and when, let's make it clear that it's when there will be an encounter, it's going to be positive. Aliens are not going to invade planet Earth and destroy us, and I'll tell you why. Because if they were hostile, and if they did want to destroy us, we would have been destroyed a long time ago. On the contrary, they want to save our planet. So Forget the word invasion. It's nothing to do with me. But thank you very much for bringing this question up.
I would guess we're our worst enemies, not the aliens, Uri.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, and I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, look at this. We are still fighting, and we're still killing each other in the name of religion. And, you know, the energy, the aliens, theological, the theological community calls it God. The scientific community calls it energy. It's the same description, different terminology. I'm a huge believer in the power of prayer. I believe in God. I believe that above us, in infinite spaces out there, there is the Creator. And also concerning our mind, and once more again, my website is urigeller.com. You can become one of my Academy members. Definitely you can become, for $1, my citizen of my Lamb Island, which all goes to charity to help sick children. There is a very powerful sentence, and it says, the last frontier is not space. It is the mind. Because we have not discovered, we've just discovered a fraction of our human potential. It is amazing what we will be doing 200, 300, 400 years from now. I just hope that we will go to the right direction. And I think, George, you believe that too.
Absolutely, Uri. And I want to thank you again for being on the program. You're one of our favorites. Stay safe and keep in touch with us, okay?
Bless you all, and I love you all.
Uri Geller. Folks, his website is linked up at coasttocoastam.com. Up next, we've got open lines for you. Just about anything goes. We will also be having Ask George. You remember that feature where we take several emails that you have sent us that Tom asks me a question or two. We'll do a little bit of that. And also, in next hour, I'm going to do something different and something very special for one of our Coast listeners. It's something I'll explain when we come back in a moment, but it's very important. And also, don't forget to sign up for our free YouTube channel by going to Coast AM Official in the YouTube. And welcome back to the open line portion of Coast to Coast. Good to be with you. Anything goes. Jump aboard and make the call. And, of course, our special feature on Fridays is Ask George, where Tom reads me a couple emails that you've sent us about certain things. And, Thomas, what do we have right now?
Well, we do this every time we have open lines. We'll fire some at you. Maria in Georgia, what is your definition of integrity?
To be honest as often as you can. Simple as that.
Jonathan in Cape Cod, do you embrace technology?
I think technology is great. Some people are afraid of it. We have had special guests on, including last night, about the dangers of artificial intelligence, that it could get out of hand. I think that's a real possibility, and we need to be careful about that. But we still need to keep moving forward, not backward. So, yes, I am.
So you don't worry about it getting out of hand, though. You know it's there, but you don't really worry about it.
It could get out of hand. But worrying's not going to get things done.
No, that's true.
We should always worry about that.
Last one, Clancy in Rhode Island. Describe your perfect day off.
My perfect day off? Well, there's a couple things. My perfect day off would be if I'm in St. Louis to see my kids and have some fun with my friends and buddies. If I'm in Los Angeles to hit a couple of places. You know, I ran into Paul Anka last Sunday. Mm-hmm. That was a treat. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Nice guy. And we should get him on the show.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
But do that. And then I like going to Las Vegas once in a while. It's a great little vacation spot for me.
And there you go. If you'd like to take part in Ask George, send your emails and your questions to askgeorge@coasttocoastam.com. We'll comb through them, and we just might pick you.
We'll be back with Open Lines in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Open Lines. George Noory with you. I hope your 2023 started off with a bang and everything is going well for you as we roll into February pretty soon. And this year's going to go by quicker and quicker and quicker. I'm going to remind all of you when we're doing our Christmas show, which is on a Monday this year, how quickly this year went by. Watch, just watch. Let's go to some of the phones. Let's go to Elisa in Portland, Oregon to get us started. Welcome to the program, Elisa.
Hi, George. I guess if I have the second best choice after Uri, it would be you.
Of course.
Hey, I might just be making your show nearby me.
Oh, that would be great. And
yeah.
if you do, make sure you come up and introduce yourself to us.
Oh, definitely. I probably look exactly how you would imagine from my sound. Mostly I was just calling to find out, and I just asked Tom. He said still no word on anything about Annie from Alabama.
We don't know what has happened to her, and nobody has called telling us what has happened to her. I'm a little concerned about that.
Well, we know some good psychics.
Yeah, it's not a good situation when people just disappear when they call once a week or twice a week, like she did.
No, but that was mostly what I was calling about.
I would hope it's an economic situation and she can get back on her feet, but you never know. I hope it's not anything. She's having
trouble with her phone situation quite often.
Yeah, that's true too. But I'm glad you cared about her. What else is going on with you?
That's about it, other than this what I've been calling in about lately, with this attachment that I've been having an issue with.
Keep fighting it.
I do my best.
Okay, keep in touch, Lisa.
To me, it's attacking my animals,
Protect your animals and protect yourself. Let's go to AC in Cleveland, east of the Rockies. Hello, AC.
Hello, George. The best of health to you throughout this year.
You too, my friend.
At the beginning of the program with Uri, he was talking about the opening of the Red Sea.
Yes.
And Moses had led the Israelites through the Red Sea.
Parting the Red Sea.
Yes. And so I wanted to read this verse of Scripture here. It says, "And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided." So I just wanted to point out that this is clearly the miracle hand of God.
It was a miracle. And then the Egyptians tried coming through to get the Israelites, and the water came back on them, and they drowned, right?
Exactly. Even Pharaoh. Even Pharaoh was destroyed, and they did find chariot wheels and pieces of chariots coralized a few years ago.
On the seabed. I know, that was amazing, wasn't it?
Yes, and that's to prove that the Lord did the miracle.
Do you believe everything in the Bible?
Yes, I do.
Revelation. I want to do a show on Revelation. What do you think of that?
Okay. I think it's a good idea.
We'll do it.
And the book of Revelation promises people a blessing for just reading it. And there's the book of Revelation actually is outlined in the first chapter. God gives us an outline for how to rightly divide it.
What do you think of the mark of the beast, the 666?
It's coming, okay? And it will be instituted when the Antichrist comes to power, and people will not be able to buy or sell without this mark on their hand or their forehead. And it hasn't been implemented yet. There's false information going out that, the vaccine was the mark of the beast. No. There will come a time where this Antichrist, who will be a world leader, and the nations will welcome him as a world leader, most of them, and he will institute this mark of the beast, cashless economic society.
You may be right about that, AC. You may be right about that indeed. Over the course of a couple calls, one of our listeners has called in and has been very despondent. And we have talked to that person. And Tom, I want to put you on here for a second. We're always concerned about people when they call up and they are that despondent. And Tom, would you agree with me that that was a crisis situation?
150%.
His name was Chris, and he has called the show a couple times. And the last time he called, he was getting stronger and better. And but he told us about a situation. I'm going to bring him on for a second because I think it's important that you hear his story. Hey, Chris, how you been?
Hey, George, I'm doing good. Thank you guys for all your help. You guys are major dudes.
You sound much stronger, my friend.
I'm getting stronger with every word, by every breath.
Good. When you have called in, you told us about your girlfriend who was sick in the hospital, and she has passed on now.
She passed on that night right after I talked to you, probably about 3 in the morning.
And we're very sorry
I felt it.
to hear that.
Yeah, I know. It's like life. There's death in it.
What had happened to her?
Well, she got the vaccine, and in the second shot, she started getting sick. And I told her, Melanie, I called her Mel. I said, it's just no reaction. You're going to get through it and all that stuff. And she would be soaked. Every morning she woke up, her clothes were wet. She said, I don't feel good. My muscles are getting weak and this and that. And she wouldn't go to the doctor. She'd never been to the doctor. She'd been 65 years without ever going to the doctor ever. I mean, not ever going to the hospital. Excuse me. She had babies.
Yeah.
But she was in great shape. And finally I talked to her and going to the rheumatologist, and they said she had something called myositis, which is a rare autoimmune disease.
Yep.
It eats away your muscles, and it did that within a couple weeks.
Did she go peacefully?
I think she did, George. And the good thing that came out of it, she didn't talk to her daughter and her sister. There was some kind of problem in the family. I always tried to get straight, but I couldn't do it. And when she died, by chance, when I went to the hospital, I don't talk to them. They were all there, and they told me what was wrong because I really couldn't get much information, because she couldn't talk because she wasn't strong enough. She couldn't eat, and she was having to have something to breathe. So like I told you that night when I was there, she had a full mask on. They were giving oxygen, and she couldn't write. She was trying to talk to me. I couldn't understand what she was saying. It was so frustrating.
Chris, and Melanie Ray
Brown
was a singer.
Oh, yeah.
And she had a dream. Tell us what that dream was.
The dream that she would be on George Noory. We used to lay in bed and watch it, and she goes, I want to get into this tender tapes. And she goes, when are they going to get played? I said, Melanie, they're busy. These guys have a lot of people sitting in there. I said, someday I'll get them played for you. I promise I will.
All right, well, we're going to do something. I want you to stay on the line because I want to come back briefly and talk with you after this is done. But you have been able to give us one of her songs, Melanie Ray Brown. Her dream was to get on this program, and I'm going to play this song in its entirety for her.
You're still on my mind. Sometimes love won't go away just with passing time. I think about the way it was.
That's Melanie Ray Brown. She has passed away, but her goal was to get that song on Coast to Coast. Chris, she did a great job with that song.
Man, I can feel that they're just smiling away. I feel the presence of her right on my back. It's beautiful.
You feel better?
Oh, yeah. George, I wrote a little something. I don't know if you have time for me to read it.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things is when the power of love overcomes the love of power, this world will be at peace. Okay, the last 2 weeks, I've been looking through my phone, through my thoughts, through my life. I started to get kind of lonely and just felt out of faith, just kind of down. Normal. From love and happiness and my loss. I said, George, I'm looking at this the wrong way. I'm totally the wrong way. Go back 15 years when I met Melanie, or Mel, I always called her. If I'd never had that time to feel so much love, unexplainable passion, and in the end, compassion. That's love. It would have been a loss more than I could ever do in life without. I'm happy to have this loss because without this sorrow, that means I would have never known that power of love. Okay? So to have a little plan, it's like Pay It Forward, kind of like the movie, but a little different. You help give someone to stop, not money, not material things, but only love and time. I call it Pay It Up. And we can do this. We can make the difference. One good action, maybe a big smile to someone that's lonely. It's easy to do, okay? Here's my little catchy line. It's easy for me, it's easy for you, okay? Slow down the world and give the time to an old soul or person that needs a young person's thoughts and dreams, okay? Open your heart and let it flow out. Saturate their soul. I know we can do this. It's not hard to do. If everyone try to give it a try. 1 or 2 people a day. Maybe they do 1 or 2. It may work. We have nothing to lose. George, wait. I'm wrong. I thought love is the most powerful force in the world. More than anything. But I had that wrong, too. I have to rethink it. Love is the most powerful force in the universe, by far. And I want to thank you guys for letting me say my words. And I just wanted to read that again once more about there's no longer a time for me to be sad, but to be rejoiced and be thankful for what I had. And give gratitude, which is my attitude. I'm trying to get through this.
You stay strong.
When the power of love overcomes the love of power, that's what's going on. That's what he was talking about earlier. The world will be at peace. So we got to get that straight, get it right. I think we can do it.
Stay strong, Chris.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys more than you could ever know.
Tommy, I want to bring you in here for a second.
Wow. I got to tell you something, George. You have crafted this show to where we help people and we're there for people. And over the course of the last few weeks, he would email me every couple days and say, I'm feeling better. So I saw the progression.
He was suicidal, wasn't he?
Yeah. It's a bad thing. And then I heard that song. What a beautiful voice. What a beautiful voice.
She could have made it on any country western station ever.
Oh,
she was good.
Yeah, agreed. She really was. So I'm glad that you gave the vehicle to play the song.
Well, he sounds like he's getting stronger. And Chris, you got a family here for us. Let's make sure. We're going to continue with open lines in just a moment on Coast to Coast. So those of you on hold, just hang there. I should get right to you when we come back in a moment. Lots going on, and say a little prayer for people in Ukraine, that whatever is supposed to happen soon with Russia coming up on 3 fronts, that this thing ends and ends quickly and peacefully. But I don't know. It's a tough situation, and to be sure. And something else. But stick with us, folks. We'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And Tom, thank you for arranging that interview with Chris. And we will be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Noory with you. Let's go right to the phones. Let's go to Marcy, west of the Rockies in San Diego, California. Hi, Marcy. Marcy? Nope, not there. Let's try Spencer in Utah. First-time caller. Spence, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi, Spence.
Hello. I was just calling to ask you what you thought of, like, all these folks just, like, passing away, young athletes. It's all going unquestioned. To me, I believe it's complications due to folks getting the vaccination for COVID.
Well, let me talk about that first of all. We will never recommend that you get a vaccine or not. That's your business, your concern, your decision. So we don't go there. And be that as it may, there are a lot of anomalies done. I think the vaccine, in my opinion, came out way too fast when COVID came out, almost as if they were ready for this. But it is just too weird. But there have been some people who have gotten sick after they had the vaccines. Now, was it the vaccine's fault? I don't know. But there's a lot of strange correlations. We need more research into all of these things. But they do come out way too fast. I thought it would take years for vaccines to come out, not a matter of months when this thing hit. Let's go to Cornelius in Louisiana. Hello there, Mr. White.
Hey, George, I want to salute you and Tommy. I tell you, we got to pray for Mr. Chris, and that was a beautiful song that you sang.
It sure was.
His person that's departed and everything. And, Chris, you're in the Coast to Coast family now, so don't worry about anything. And
well said, Cornelius.
Like I said, I met you in New Orleans at the Oswald Conference, and we've been friends ever since, so I salute you on that, George. I hope you'll meet Chris one day, you and Tommy. But I'm calling tonight. AC said the vaccine wasn't mark of the beast, but it's not. But it's a predecessor. My dad was looking into all this stuff, and I'm glad Tommy got that package I sent y'all because he was in the Knights Templar, and it's just odd. I never knew my dad was in the Freemasons and Knights Templar till after he passed.
Really? How did you find that out?
Well, searching for everything, George, trying to find the will and trying to find, because he didn't tell me anything, and he died of COVID in December 13th of 2020.
Was he vaccinated?
No. This is the vaccine. I think it just started coming out, but he told me, he said, if they ever force people to take that vaccine, don't take it. And, I caught COVID. And what the doctor did, he didn't ask me if I took the vaccine or not. He gave me a whole bunch of vitamins, A, B, C, and D, and zinc.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what he gave me to recover and everything, and prayers from y'all and stuff. And that's what I want to say, too, about the Coast to Coast audience. See that Buffalo Bills player, whether he took the vaccine or not, the power of prayer is a powerful thing. But when the Lord wants to take you home, George, he just wants to take you home. But
when it's your time, it's your time, and nothing's going to stop it.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to bring up, George. A lot of the Coast to Coast callers and listeners have sent me letters and even helped me out to pay some of my bills and stuff. So I want to thank all of them. The Mobile man, there's a lady that's a newspaper lady. She listens to the show every night, George. And you just don't know what kind of audience that you have and how much you and Tommy mean to people, especially once they meet you at one of these meet and greets and everything. But like I said, one more thing. I've got if you go to YouTube, go to Cornelius Lawson White, and you'll see I did a tribute to my mom and dad. Martin Luther King came to Alexandria and spoke, and my parents were threatened and stuff like that, but they still went anyway. So I want to thank you for all of that, George, and God bless Chris. And Spencer, you just stay reading the Bible. I'm glad you're going to do something on Revelation. The God, guns, and gold, man, the Bible, bullets, and beans, man. Got to get in on that Revelation.
No, I want to do that. That's a big story, and we'll take care of that. Thanks, Cornelius. Glad you're well. Bruce in Alabama, take it away, Bruce. Welcome to the show.
George, thanks for taking my call. It's a wonderful program
Thank
tonight.
you, Bruce.
I was hoping to get a comment from Mr. Geller on a subject near and dear to your heart, on the creation of the universe.
Ah.
And
would have been a great question for him, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me there's a power of multiplication going on there, and I was wondering if he could have spoken to how that relates to Jesus and the miracles he produced while he was here.
Do you tie
Seems like
religion in with the creation of the universe or just science?
I'm sorry.
Do you think
I missed that a little bit?
Do you tie religion in with the creation of the universe or just science?
Well, to me, there's a Word of God which is revealed, and then there's the written Word of God. And you have to pay attention to both of those. You can't really not do that. But it seems to me as if there was, if Jesus hadn't produced the miracles he did, and all of them seem to be like using the power of multiplication, that Jesus wouldn't have been Jesus. But in any case, maybe next time Mr. Geller's on, he could. And have you heard from anybody about? One of your questions I've heard in the past is, how did the universe come about?
And nobody can answer it for us yet. We keep trying, Bruce. We keep trying, but that'll be a good question for Geller when he's back on. He's on about once a year for us. And let's go to Jeremy in North Dakota. Welcome to the program. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. George. Today is 19 years, 1 month, and 13 days since my nearly fatal away.
Well, you count them by the days, don't you?
Yep.
What, do you have like a calendar and you just click them off?
I found a website that allows you to count the time since.
Do you have nightmares about that thing, Jeremy?
No, but what I actually had the other day was I had a dream that I walked from Jamestown, North Dakota, all the way down to Sedona for the event.
Well, come on by. We'd love to see you. Do you still drive?
Nope. When I went to renew my driver's license, I passed the written test like everybody else has to, but they told me they could not reissue my license because I had a traumatic brain injury.
Really?
Yep. And I find that completely against the Constitution.
How do you get around? Uber and stuff like that?
When the weather is nice. But when it's nice, I use a electronic mobility scooter.
How far away are you from Sedona?
I am clear across the country.
That's a long poke for you? Thinking of North Dakota, you're way up north. There's Arizona. Yeah, that's maybe 1,000 miles, 1,500.
I think I Googled it, and it was like 1,300. So.
Well, one day we'll get you at a live event, Jeremy, that's for sure. Let's go next to Lee in Alabama, east of the Rockies. Hi, Lee. Welcome to the show.
Hey, George. How you doing?
Great.
I wanted to ask you, about 15 years ago, I was listening to Coast, and I can't remember if you were the host that night on the show or not, but the guest was talking about young men were being found dead in bodies of water or on near bodies of water, and there was a smiley face that they would always find painted nearby.
I think that was me.
Okay. I couldn't remember. I was just wondering, did they ever solve that?
No, they really haven't, and it's a quiet story. There was another bizarre story. Remember the one where feet were washing up on shore?
Yes.
Severed feet.
Yes.
I have a feeling it's the same person.
Right. Well, I was thinking about that, and I just had never heard anything else about it, and I just wanted to get updated on it.
Yeah, no, that's, you know what? You just sparked me to check into that story again, where bodies were shown, and there was a smiley face put by the body all the time. That's really bizarre, to be sure. Next up, we've got Glenn, International Line in Alberta, Canada. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, George, I love the show. Hard to get in there, but I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And, yeah, I'd just like to offer Uri Geller a spoon. You know, I'd be happy to do it on TV or whatever.
Huh.
But that's, you know what, that's neither here nor there. Zelensky and Putin. To me, Zelensky is corrupt beyond belief. And if you look at all the money we're giving him, and does anyone ever know, nobody mentions the Budapest Accord, the 1989 Budapest Accord. It's NATO and the U.S. that has breached that accord, not Putin. And if you look at the war on Christianity, I just want people to consider these things. And look at all the innocent people killed in Ukraine by Zelensky, okay? The Donbass region, all these things. And I just want people to understand that the enemy is within. The enemy is not China and Russia. And I'm not defending them. I'm saying look at all the ills in the Western world. Look at the actions and inactions of your own leaders. The enemy is in Washington, Ottawa, London, Sydney, and Ukraine. Contemplate this because, for example, Canada, we've scrapped 4 pipelines. Trudeau did, since he got in 2015. Look at the energy ills and woes, and we're blaming Russia for gas prices and food prices and all these things. No, look at your own leaders. Look at what they are doing, okay? Look what they have done. It's not Russia and China. They're not the enemy. The enemy is within. I'll just leave that with you, my friend.
Interesting take of that. John Hogue believes the same thing, and I get mixed emails, to tell you the truth about this. I mean, when we'll have Hogue on, he gets accused of being a Putin apologist from a handful of people, and then I get a few people who support what he says. But it's a tough call. I mean, the whole thing is out of control, quite frankly. I mean, a lot of civilians have died in the Ukraine. That's unnecessary. But I kind of wish diplomacy would have taken over in the beginning before any of this had happened. Just as the Russians were starting to mount their soldiers on the border, somebody should have worked it out with them and said, what's going on? What do you need? I think they could have done that. There could have been a resolution. It's very disappointing. George in Pennsylvania, welcome to the show. Hey, George.
Hi, George. Your program will record seeds of wisdom like they do up in the north, and I wanted to talk about the Uri Geller situation on that piece of metal, but I want to relate it to the piece of metal related to hurricanes, tornadoes, and the alien UFO ship motors. They're related, and I'll tell you how.
All right.
George is what I'm saying. Now, George Shultz was Secretary of State in Reagan's years, and I met him at the patent office down in Washington, D.C., and he walked me over to the patent office because I wanted to see what patents were on anti-gravity. And one of the patents in there that I wanted in was Dr. Walker's. And I believe, if I'm still remembering good, I'm 87 right now.
Good for you. You don't sound it.
Yeah, and in there was, and I believe it was bismuth. It was a metal spinning between the fields. But see, the phenomena was micro. That is at the micro level, molecular level, and the same as that piece of metal that Uri had in his hand. And I'm sure when he picked it up, it was cold, because the phenomenon of anti-gravity is an outside-in motor. It's an electrical motor, that flips, literally, and flips is a phenomena of where if it gets up to enough speed and you have counter-rotational positive fields, it flips to a gravity field motor. When it goes to gravity field, it's using the energy, and of course the term for it in science, I'm a scientist, is called the direct sea, versus like the ocean, but it's all the matter that's around you. And it takes in that matter and causes it to speed up, and in which you have to control electrically. Well, that piece of metal is whatever the material. It might be bismuth, it might be another, but it would be that phenomenon of that patent, you see.
Does it have to be a certain? Does it have to be a certain kind of metal?
Yeah, bismuth.
It has to be
now,
that.
it could be. Now, it could be. I could also make and construct out of carbons and other things. All I got to do is get two molecular spins counter-rotational and built such that you would call it an outside-in electrical motor.
How'd you come up with this?
Because I built one. Had one built.
Why didn't you ever sell it?
No, when you're a scientist, you can make nothing except you know that you were there and caused the world to change.
You could have revolutionized propulsion.
Well, it is, but you can see it every time there's a storm, a tornado. That sound that you hear, the train sound, is a dimensional. It's like lightning, but it's when the electrical phenomena of the storm flips to gravitational mode.
Send me an email, George, with some of those plans. I want to take a look at this thing. We're going to come back with more calls after this on Coast to Coast. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. George Noory back with you. And let's go to the phones. Let's go to Marcy in San Diego, California, west of the Rockies. Hey, Marcy, welcome.
Hi. I wanted to give some insight into what Lisa Marie Presley and Elvis, their deaths. For 30 or 40 years, when I waited in the grocery line, I would read the Enquirer, and it would have, here's a picture of Lisa Marie walking out of the drug rehab. A couple months later, here's a picture of Lisa Marie walking back into the drug rehab. Over and over, as my little niece said, it was a lot. And they said on Inside Edition that she was down to $95,000, and she inherited all that Graceland estate, Elvis estate. She's the only heir. And they said it's a mystery how all that money disappeared.
Where'd it go?
They don't know. My husband's only a retired machinist, and he's got $300,000. His house was paid off when we met, and both of us were 37. A person can be sensible with their money.
Sure.
And also, when Elvis died, one of the ambulance drivers was on TV, and he said the guys were going to go up and get him, and I stepped inside. I wanted to see Graceland. And he said they started bringing down this huge, massive man with white hair. And I said, well, I wanted to see Elvis. Where's Elvis? They said, this is Elvis.
What?
And his wife went on TV, and she said his whole problem was nobody ever said no to Elvis, not about drugs, not about food, not about women. And the marriage ended because of all the one-night stands he did all over the country. He got married, and he just went right on like it never happened.
Like he was never married.
Yeah, right. And they said on the autopsy show, they said that he had a huge boulder in his colon because he ate massive amounts of food, and he was straining and straining, and he keeled over and died. While I've got you on the line, please don't stop playing Over the Rainbow with Brother Izzy.
Oh, no, we play that once in a while.
I never hear it. And also Annie.
We don't know where she is.
On her last phone call, she said, I am being forced out of my house, and it's really getting bad for me. Everything is getting so expensive. Everything has to be trucked in, and the gas has gone through the roof, and that makes every darn thing in the store expensive.
You think something happened to her?
All I know is she said, I'm being forced out of my house. And can I say, when Biden was running, he said on TV, they asked him, would there be any place for gas and oil in your administration? He said no. And they said, what about the border? I'm not going to stop those people from coming in.
Well, he's trying to, that's for sure. Thanks, Marcy. Text and tweets. Tommy, what do you have?
Hey, this one from Carrie in Virginia. So she wants to know what sense you would least like to lose.
What sense?
Taste, smell, hearing.
Oh, you know what? Let's go through these. I was thinking about that question a couple weeks ago.
It's a horrible question.
How difficult it is for people who get by. You really have to admire people who are blind or they, can't speak or something, and they get by, and they get by well. I'm not sure after all these years of having these faculties and these senses, it would be easy for us. So I don't know which I would want to lose. Probably the sense of smell I would rather lose than anything else. Wouldn't you?
I can't choose, and I don't want to choose because I think
you don't want to lose
horrible.
You don't want to lose your vision.
No.
You don't want to lose your hearing.
No.
You don't want to lose your speak.
I don't want to lose my taste.
Well, but what about smell?
No, I want to smell. Don't you want to be able to smell a flower in life?
Well, if you have to give up one sense, it's got to be something.
Yeah, but it's a terrible question. It really is. And I do have the utmost respect for people that have lost a certain thing. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And they call here all the time.
Well,
and you know that.
They're amazing. I met Stevie Wonder years ago, and you got to admire that guy. He's been blind since he was born.
And what a talent.
Oh, he was one of the best. For Motown, one of their top sellers.
I guess I would have to say hearing because they've made some significant advances in hearing. So that's probably your best chance of getting something back, I would think.
Absolutely. I hear John Fogerty's going to be on, your buddy, with George Knapp this week.
He is, and he just got all his rights back to his music. Congratulations, John. And tune in Sunday because it's going to be a great interview.
Guess who sent me an email last week?
Who?
Jesse Dillon, Bob's son. Just checking in to see how things were.
We still can't get Bob, though?
But he doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to do media. I would have liked.
I keep getting comments from Doc Emmerich calling last week.
The hockey announcer.
Yeah. People are telling me that was cool.
He is. He's quite a guy. He listens to the show quite often.
He's been listening for 5 years, George.
Great announcer.
Yeah.
Great
one of the best.
Yep. Jim in the Big Island. Hello, Jimmy. Go ahead.
Hello, George.
How are you? How are the Koki frogs?
Actually, they're kind of quiet tonight because it's on the cool side and dry.
All right.
So, anyway, congratulations on 20 years.
Thank you, Jimmy.
And my prayers, along with everybody else in the Coast family, for Chris and Melody.
Thank you.
And she has an awesomely beautiful voice.
What a great song. I mean, just inspiring. And he's a good guy.
And, shout outs to people, because I know Cornelius is praying for him. I heard him a little bit ago. And, Barry and everybody else. And my prayers for Annie. Like we said, you don't know what's happened to her, so she's in God's hands, whichever way.
Let's pray for her.
Anyway, that's kind of, the short of it tonight.
Volcano silent out that way?
Yeah, they died down. Kilauea started acting up again in Halemaumau crater, but it's all contained within the crater.
Oh, that's good. Okay, thanks, Jim. Always good hearing from you way out there. Mary in New Jersey. Hello, Mary.
Oh, hello, George. I was listening to the radio a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And a show came on, and he says, nobody's talking about this, but I'm going to talk about it. A 13-year-old girl in the UK had a deadly form of leukemia. It was incurable. And she agreed to this experiment because she didn't have a choice. And he took T cells. The doctor took T cells out of another human, cloaked them somehow, put them into her body where they weren't visible to her T cells, and they destroyed all her T cells, the good and the bad. And then she got a bone marrow transplant, and she's free of cancer.
That's a miracle. My God.
It is a miracle. And then he was saying, or one of them was talking, it was a talk show, and they're saying, how about tumors in people? Maybe that could work, something like that. But that is a miracle. She's free of cancer she got a bone marrow transplant after they killed all the T cells.
They're going to defeat that stupid virus and then that disease one day, I think.
Cancer.
Yep. One day.
Oh, and tumors.
Have you ever had any problems like that?
Tumors?
Anything, yeah.
I have a problem. What you were just talking about in the year 2015.
Yeah.
I went to the front door. I heard somebody at the front door open the door. I heard them. I couldn't see them. So it's been like that since about 2015.
What do you mean you heard them but you couldn't see them?
I heard I could hear them talking. I couldn't see them. I couldn't see anybody. So, I don't know if it's from all this traumatic. They wouldn't leave me alone with the cats and all. They finally killed all my cats. Got them all.
Are you blind?
Yeah, I can't see. So I don't know, but that's from 2015, around about there. But it's so much going on all the time.
What did doctors say?
I didn't go to the doctors.
You've never been to an eye doctor?
No.
You've gone blind and you haven't been to an eye doctor?
No, I won't.
They might be able to restore your sight.
Maybe not. I don't know.
You won't know unless you go.
There's so much going on with these doctors. I don't know.
Some are pretty good.
Pardon?
Some are pretty good.
I don't know what you said.
Some doctors are pretty good. They're not all bad, Mary. Go. My recommendation. Next up, let's go to Russell in Alhambra, California. Welcome to the show. Hey, Russ.
Hello, George.
Thanks for holding.
Yeah, well, it was a pleasure. I've called in the past, and I had the Benjamin Krem effect. Each time I called, I experienced a strange ill feeling and rattled off speaking very quickly, but that doesn't seem to be the case tonight. So.
Good. Yeah, that was a weird night, wasn't it?
Very strange. And let's hope it's not repeated.
Yeah, exactly.
So, sir, what I'd like to share with you and the Coast audience is a topic I emailed to you, but you've probably received many, and I put it to the test. It concerns an assembly bill here in California, Assembly Bill 2098, 2098, and it was signed into law by Governor Newsom, and it's referred to as the Unprofessional Conduct Bill. It's only 2 pages long. People can look it up and see what it covers. I, this past week, went to an MD for a regular scheduled just checkup, and I said to him, he says, "How's it going?" And I said, "Will you please identify for me any contagious airborne pathogen these masks are supposed to prevent the transmission of, or otherwise interfere with becoming infected?" And he actually said to me, he looked quite discomforted, and he said, "We're not going to talk about that." So I would say to the audience, check your own states to be vigilant that this type of a bill does not get through their legislative bodies, and for people in California to look up this so-called unprofessional conduct bill, which did go into effect on January 1 of this year, 2023. And so it interferes with their ability to speak freely, anything that doesn't seem to reflect the CDC's proclamations. So since you really have covered a few calls tonight on the SARS-CoV-2, SARS, depending on the name, right? COVID or SARS-CoV-2. I thought you might want to share this, and I appreciate your shall we say, broad acceptance of calls this evening.
Absolutely. Russell, thanks. Appreciate you being in the program. Lucille's with us in Modesto, California. Hello, Lucille. Thanks for calling.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Sure.
It's nice to just chat a little. I thought I'd share an experience I had. I was traveling, and it was a long trip, and I think maybe 18, 19 hours coming in, and I was dead tired, and I'd called ahead and had a shuttle waiting for me at the airport, but we were 45 minutes late getting in, and actually the whole trip was amazing. I'm just catching the tail end of it for you.
Yeah.
But so we get off, and I go in the airport, and all of the stations are shut down. You couldn't find anybody to help you with anything. And I guess they were having a golf conference. The shuttle was gone. And I think, you couldn't get a rental car. You couldn't get a hotel. You couldn't get anything.
Ever Uber?
What did you say?
Have you ever Ubered?
Oh, no, I haven't, as a matter of fact.
You know what that is, right?
Yeah, I do. And there's a couple of other names, too, that I've forgotten.
Lyft.
But anyway, so thankfully I had a lot of stuff I was traveling with. So, and I got really, really tired. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to lay down underneath the camera and make myself a bed. At least if I get killed, somebody will see them. And anyway, so I picked a place under the camera that amazingly was pretty clean, and fixed this pretty neat bed because I had the feather blankets and all that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, so just as I'm about to relax, here comes this guy from out of nowhere, and he says he wanted to know if I wanted to ride. Well, he was a total stranger, and I thought, no, I don't think I want to do that.
Not a cabbie or nothing like that, right?
Right.
Oh,
so anyway,
don't go, don't go.
Anyway, he ran off, and he kept coming back. About 6 times he came back.
Jeez.
Well, about the 6th time, I was super tired, and I'd had it. And he wanted to know if I wanted to ride again. And this time I was more tempted, so I thought, well, I got on the phone and I called the guy that I had left to watch my house and gave him the guy's license number and a description of him and the whole bit.
So you were going to go with this guy, huh?
Yeah, I did.
Did he try anything? Anything happen?
Well, I had this horrible headache, just even from the stress, and then not being able to rest or sleep. And so we're in the car, and he seemed like a pretty decent guy. He comes out, and the car's new, and the whole bit. And, I offered to pay him, what I would pay a rental car.
Sure.
Anyway, so we get in the car, and he puts my luggage in and all that stuff, and we take off, and we reached the Altamont. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's kind of like rolling hills between here and San Francisco.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, we're on the Altamont, and it was I've been there when there were nice stars and everything. There wasn't a star, there wasn't a moon, there was nothing. And I thought, it'd be real easy to throw a body over the cliff.
Oh, God.
Anyway, so I'm sitting there and just getting a worse and worse headache.
And he's driving still at this point?
Yeah, he's still driving, and he's being decent, but, he was a total stranger.
And he's supposed to be taking you straight to your home?
Right. So
That's great.
Anyway,
so then he'd know where you live.
Right. But anyway, so it's pitch dark, and he's driving along, and we'd been talking just a little bit, not very much, and then he says, "What's going on?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "I don't pick people up at airports."
He's asking you this when he picked you up?
Yeah. He says, and, we've been talking, and we started talking a little bit about God and the Bible and this and that, which made me relax a little bit.
Maybe he was an angel out to save you.
Well, so he says, I don't pick people up at airports. And he says,
but he did.
And I don't talk about God.
But he did. And I've only got 30 seconds, but so did you get home safely?
He started singing me the Bible. I mean, it wasn't normal talking, and he was not missing a beat or a letter.
But tell me, did you get home safely? You must have. You're still here.
I got home, and the little guy, Angelo, who was a wonderful Greek cook, came running out. I planted these flowers, and I tried to introduce him. I said, this is Angelo. And he says, I know. God sent you your own angel.
See, that's what it was. That's what I thought. I was right. We'll be back to talk about past life regression next. And welcome back. Past life regression therapist Barbara Lamb, one of the best. And I had a chance to discuss her work with children's regressions and how they are linked to extraterrestrials. Barbara, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, George. I'm delighted to be here.
And how are you these days?
I'm fine. Really busy these days.
How did you get involved in hypnotherapy? How did that first start for you?
Well, first of all, I became licensed as a psychotherapist back in 1976, way back there. And then in 1984, I began to have a few years of training to be a past life regression therapist. And that eventually morphed into people coming for regressions who had had extraterrestrial encounters. And of course, when they first started coming in 1991, some of them knew that they were having strange visitors at night, and sometimes they were having missing time, or sometimes they would have unusual markings on their bodies or little lumps under their skin, which turned out to be implants. And so they didn't really know what was going on, but they knew something very peculiar was happening to them now and then. So anyway, we did regressions to some of those experiences, and it turned out that they were extraterrestrial encounters. So that's how I happened to get into that. And my goodness, George, since 1991, I have had the great privilege, I consider it, of regressing well over 2,000 individuals to these extraterrestrial experiences.
And Barbara, when you were doing this and you were getting these kinds of accounts, did you think, this is weird, this is strange?
Well, I did, yes, because I had, like most of us, I didn't grow up with that kind of knowledge at all. And I had thought that UFOs and extraterrestrials were simply fiction. That's what I thought. So when people started coming to me with these particular happenings and wonderings, you know, I really wasn't thinking in terms of extraterrestrials, but the more the regressions went on and the more detailed the experiences were that were coming out in regression, you know, I finally had to believe that, whoa, a lot of people are getting visited by these beings and having a variety of experiences.
At what point did you start getting involved with the children?
Well, even back in that first year, in 1991, I was working with about 3 different adults about their extraterrestrial experiences, and they were talking about their children having reports. The children would give reports of, you know, unusual visitors in the room at night, or being flown out the window and up into the air and into someplace else. And so the adults began to think, wow, I'm not only having these experiences, but my child is having them. So fortunately, for them and for me. Some of these mothers were bringing their children in to my office just to have a chat about these things. And what they were describing about the beings and about what was happening to them certainly sounded like what was happening to the adults, and that they were indeed having experiences with what we call extraterrestrial beings. But I'd like to mention some of the ways that children talked about them. It's kind of cute in some ways. I mean, in other words, some children would report that fairies were in their room last night. Or some kids called them monsters. Oh, those little monsters came again. Or kids said, oh, yeah, those little sparkles of light came in the room through the window and they swirled around and made all these pretty patterns. And some kids even said, you know, a big ball of light, white light, came into the room and woke me up, and it was sort of flying around, and then it stopped, and then out of this big ball of light came a little guy, a little being, like a little gray being, or sometimes even three little beings. Of course, they didn't know to call them aliens.
Right. They didn't know what they were.
Extraterrestrials, no, but they just would see this thing happen. And some people called them little people. So they'd report the next day to mom and dad, oh, the little people came. Or I know one child kept talking about the funny little people. And one lady saw all these little sparkles flying around in the room when these occasions would happen, and she called them the fireflies because that's what it reminded her of. And then I had somebody at one point, one child called them the gargoyle people because he'd seen statues on Notre Dame and different cathedrals like that. And so these E.T. visitors reminded him of the gargoyles. Another lady saw little lights very frequently around the ceiling, the edge of the wall where it met the ceiling all the way around, and she called them the little woodgies.
The little woodgies?
Yeah. So in other words, kids don't know what to call them, so they sort of make up their own name. And another little boy said, oh, yeah, that little old man came again last night, the one with the wrinkly face. And then many children have reported that somebody, a being or two or three, have come out of the closet or in through the window. But I've really been amazed at how many people report these beings coming out of the closet.
That sounds like a portal to me, Barbara.
It does sound like a portal. And, of course, the children don't know that concept about a portal. But they certainly do frequently describe that. And some people call them their space friends.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these, kids are quite scared, even terrified, as they see these beings come in, particularly the ones that they consider are monsters. But then there are plenty of other kids who consider these beings as their friends, as playmates, as companions.
Have any of these children been taken and then brought back?
Oh, yes, that's all part of the experience. And typically, just as it is with adults or any age, the child will remember waking up and the beings in the room, and very often not being able to move or call out. And they might be aware enough to have realization of being levitated up off the bed and floated across the room, floated through the room or through the wall with these beings. And sometimes they'll remember even kind of like being floated up in a beam of light into something.
It's got to be petrifying for the kid.
Well,
it's scary for an adult.
Yes, yes, indeed. It can be scary for any age. However, what I have found with adults and with children, the more we talk about all this, and then when we do regressions too, of course, that they realize that, what seemed to be terrible and scary and frightening very often turns out to be an okay experience once they really realize what the details were, and that in some cases they were even helped in various ways by these beings.
These beings sense the kid is scared or something, I bet.
Oh, they must, yes. And I think that is why they try to do this clandestinely, because they know that they can really scare humans.
What do you think they want, though, Barbara? I mean, why deal with little kids? What's happening?
Well, you see, George, there are so many different kinds of extraterrestrial beings, different species from all over the place.
True.
And so they each have their own agenda. So it depends on which group of ETs we're talking about. Some of them are more scientifically oriented, and they want to study. They want to study us. They want to study children, teenagers, young adults, older adults, and understand how our physiology works.
Maybe they seeded us and they're checking back. Possible?
Real good possibility. What a good idea you have. Yeah, many of us do have that theory that is quite likely. We don't know for sure, but quite likely. So some of the beings, as I say, like to really understand how our bodies work. And that even begins with understanding a child's body. Some of them are more interested in how they can help a human's body, whether that's a child or an older person. And they do a lot of healing of different conditions that we humans have. And sometimes, if they don't go ahead and heal something that they can see is wrong, they will warn the person that they have a liver problem or whatever the problem is that they're seeing, and they'll suggest to the person that when the person gets home again, the person will go to his own doctor for a checkup and say that he suspects that maybe he has that particular problem, which the ETs have detected, and that the doctor will go ahead and treat that condition. But so many times, even children and any age of person will be actually healed of whatever the condition is, healed right there on the spaceship, or even in some cases, the person is healed right there at home in their own bed. In other words, the whole encounter just stays right there in the person's home. And it's frequently done, that is, the healing is done with some kind of application of light. Sometimes...
Yeah, or green goo, as you have.
Yeah, green goo, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the notable things about children, that sometimes children have found that they've been taken on board and put in a tub, like a bathtub type of arrangement, and instead of water in that tub, it's filled with what they describe as green goo, because it's sort of a little bit, it's runny, but thick, a little bit viscous. Of course, they don't use that word. And that they just sort of soak their bodies, like soaking in a bathtub. And that there's something about that green substance that gets absorbed through the child's skin and heals the child of whatever the difficulty is. And then on other occasions, sometimes the child is sick to some extent when taken aboard the spacecraft, and the child is given a glass of green liquid to drink. And that is a very healing process as well. So we humans don't know what makes up that green substance, but I wish we had it because it seems to be a wonderful healer.
These are just amazing stories in this real small book for kids. This is this primarily for kids or adults? Because I find it kind of interesting myself.
Good for you. Yes, well, we wrote the book for kids primarily, but with the idea that in many cases a parent or grandparent or babysitter might be reading that book or just looking at it, with the child, maybe reading the captions. Whether the child can read or not, kids love to be read to. And the idea is that this can validate for children if they have had these encounters. And one reason why that's important is because so many children tell their parents that their little woodgies or their little space friends or whatever have been there again last night. And the parents very often don't believe the child.
They don't see this experience, do they?
No, they don't see it. They are in their own rooms just totally sound asleep.
For Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladouceur, Stephanie Smith, Chris Boros, Tim Banal, Ian Punnett, and George Knapp, I'm George Noory, somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.